Okay, great. So I just wanted to say good morning to everybody and welcome to this session. Um, Again, I will introduce myself. My name is Jessica McCullough and I'm the Family Service Manager. I'm not going to keep my video on because again, it distracts me, but I just wanted to say welcome and I hope you all are having a great morning. So we'll go ahead and get started. Okay, so today we are going to discuss the importance of family engagement. We're just going to do a review on that and kind of discuss the connections between the service areas. We're going to talk about the shift in roles during this time, during the COVID. And also we are going to discuss different communication strategies for engaging families in visits, in virtual visits. So before we get started, I just wanted to quickly, if you all can put in the chat, just one word that comes to mind when you hear family engagement. One word or one phrase that comes to mind when you all think about family engagement. Okay, so I'm seeing togetherness, interacting, communication, connection between home and school, a lot of working together, a lot of involvement. Okay, so it sounds like just by the response interactions with families, teamwork definitely. So hopefully you all can hear me because there's a plane going over my house. Okay, self-care is a good one. Understanding between parties. Okay, so it sounds like you all have a good idea of what family engagement is. We're gonna look at this quick video of some professionals just discussing what they think family engagement is. So my PowerPoint is having some issues going to the next slide. Okay, so I'm gonna try something. If you all will just bear with me really quick so I can do something different here. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Okay, so again, we're just discussing what family engagement is, and this is just a short clip of professionals just discussing what their perspective is on family engagement.
Family engagement has traditionally been viewed as ways that we can bring parents and other caregivers into the school where we are to help out with us in one way or another. But it's so important that we recognize what it is that our students are doing outside of school, with language, with any of the experiences that they have, and that we as teachers can document those experiences so that we find ways as teachers to bring those experiences into the school.
Como maestros necesitamos ayudar a los padres a equiparlos con las herramientas necesarias para ellos poder ayudar a sus niños en el hogar. Y herramientas pueden ser sencillas.
You know, as educators, we have to understand that families are pivotal. They are the most important factor in the development of the child's identity as a scholar, in the child's goals for the future. And when we can work with families,
Family engagement has traditionally been viewed as ways that we can bring parents and other caregivers into the school where we are to help out with us in one way or another. But it's so important that we begin to realize and recognize what it is that our students are doing outside of school, with language, with any of the experiences that they have, and that we as teachers can document those experiences so that we can find ways as teachers to bring those experiences into the school.
Como maestros necesitamos ayudar a los padres a equiparlos con las herramientas necesarias para ellos poder ayudar a sus niños en el hogar. Y herramientas pueden ser sencillas.
you know, as educators, we have to understand that families are pivotal. They are the most important factor in the development of the child's identity as a scholar, in the child's goals for the future. And when we can work with families, then we have a better chance of reaching those goals. If we minimize the family, if we pretend that we're the gatekeepers to the future, then we're not just losing the family, we're losing the child also to some degree.
So when we're thinking about family engagement in early learning environments and classrooms, we really want to keep in mind that parents are an integral part of the community, that they're needed, and that they want to be a part of their children's lives and experiences. And we can engage them with tech tools or non-tech tools. It just depends on what access that they have and what works best for us and being intentional and thoughtful.
For many of us, we're working with family involvement or family engagement, apples and oranges, but there's a real difference. Family involvement, we're sort of going out together. Family engagement, we put a ring on it. It's a deeper relationship with families, and that relationship is based on trust and respect. Every child knows whether we trust and respect their families and vice versa. That is all building on relationship. It's absolutely key. Trust and respect. Write it down. Honey, cut it out. Cut whatever you need to cut out.
Okay, I'm sorry about that, guys. Okay, so that video kind of echoed what a lot of you all were saying, the words that you guys were describing in the chat box. The two words that I really want you all to remember in the engagement process is process and partnering with. So the difference between parent involvement versus family engagement. So a few years back, with Head Start and even other educational entities, we focused a lot on parent involvement. And parent involvement was typically getting families to school to be involved with the school environment. So that included activities at the school, meetings, coming in to volunteer, getting to know other families, you know, creating those experiences at school, which those are very important still, but now the focus and parent involvement in all of those activities is a part of the process of family engagement, but now we know that it's just a piece. If you can think of what it means to be engaged in something, you know, if you have a hobby or if there's a plan that you really want to achieve, you are invested in it, you are engaged, you want to know every piece of that, every piece of the puzzle as you're going through that process. So kind of remember that when we're discussing family engagement. It's more about getting families involved in the process of them actually learning their child's development, learning their experiences and how, you know, teaching them how their child actually views the world around them. So just remember, the focus is working together as partners when we're discussing family engagement so that we're able to support families on supporting their child's development. Okay, and then this right here is just a visual. I always want to try to give you all a visual of what it means to be engaged with families. And if you look at the left side of the screen, it goes from lower impact to high impact. So the lower impact activities you can see are things like celebrations, things like well, we don't do fundraisers really. Having parent resource rooms. So all of those from lower impact to high impact, those are all a part of family engagement. But as you move towards the right side, you can see that there's more interactions that actually have substance. For example, home visits, sharing data about the child, goal setting. Teachers work with goal setting with families. Family advocates work with goal setting with families as well. You can see interactive homework is kind of approaching the higher end. That's because we are always thinking about the home and school connection. Of course, the biggest example I can use is our parent and child daily activities. So we want to always make sure that we're able to extend the child's learning into their home. So that was one push that we created years ago now, it seems like, so that whatever the child was learning in the classroom, they can take that and the family can support them at home. So if the child was learning at home and at school, they have a greater chance to improve those outcomes. They have a greater chance for success in school readiness. And the other side is that parents are able to actually engage their children at home. They're actually able to work with their children. So that means if we teach those families now how to work with their children, they're going to be able to work with their children when they go to kindergarten, first grade, second grade, on the line. So we're just trying to give them a foundation. So the home and school connection is definitely very important, and that's a big part of the engagement piece as well. Okay, so we talked about a little bit about the importance of engagement for children. We know that it supports healthy development. We know children are more successful when it comes to their families being engaged in the world around them. For families, especially through this at this time, it helps families to feel safe. It gives families confidence. It helps them to feel empowered that they're able to help their child and develop the skills of their children. And then for teachers, you feel more satisfied. You're more open-minded when it's, you know, it's easier when a family is involved and they're helping you to help the child. So it does build confidence, especially in those challenging situations. Okay, so how does Head Start incorporate family engagement in all areas? So I know sometimes you all may think that family engagement, when you hear family, automatically you might think of the Family Service Department and you might think of family advocates. But actually, Head Start has placed a large focus on family engagement. Family engagement is now the foundation of all of our services to our families, because we know that children cannot be successful in school. We can't give them the best Head Start without their parents' engagement in their development. So some of you all have seen both of these, and some of you all may have seen one more than the other. So let me take off this screen here. Okay, so that didn't work. Okay, so if you look on the right side, you'll see the Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework. So many of the education staff, that's what you all plan by. And this is actually, this is the framework that education uses primarily, because this is what young children should know and be able to accomplish during their early years. So teachers are planning according to these domains if the children are infants or preschoolers. And then on the left-hand side, this is the framework that our family service team actually sees all the time. So what I wanted to kind of point out here is that both of these Head Start actually, these are in the Head Start regulations. So now all areas of Head Start, education, mental health, family services, we're all responsible for engaging families. Head Start has placed a large focus on family engagement in all areas. So if you look at this chart, just real quickly, I'm just going to kind of go over how to read this, because it could kind of be confusing. So what I like to do is just start with this framework here, and that is on your left-hand side. And I like to start with the end, because the end is actually where we want to get to. I'm not sure if you all can see my cursor, but it's the purple column here, and it says child outcomes. And if you notice the top arrow here, this is from the left to the right, the beginning to the end. This is what we want to achieve. We want to achieve positive and goal-oriented relationships. So looking at the child outcomes, this is where we eventually want to be. We want our children to be ready for school, and we want them to have a thriving home environment, a thriving school environment. So the next column kind of shows, well, it doesn't kind of show, it does show the family outcomes. So these are the family outcomes that we are trying to achieve with our families. And of course, we're not going to achieve all of these, but we know that if these are our focus when we're developing our systems and our process, and when we're communicating with families, then more than likely children will have good outcomes. So the next area here is the program impact area. Now these areas are the areas that have the greatest effect on accomplishing the family outcomes. So things like program environment, you know, how welcoming our centers are. If the areas and the environment is stimulating to the children for learning and for parents, we have family partnerships. We develop goals with our families in education and family services. So those are the impact areas that are really going to pull out these family incomes. And then on this side, this is program foundation. So this is our foundation, how we are building our program from the ground up, how we're putting family engagement as a priority in all of our systems and in our mission and our values. How are we continuously learning? So, of course, the child outcomes relates to the, I want to say the HISLOF. I don't even know if that's right. I'm sure Ms. Burns will correct me, but it relates. So you can kind of see the arrows are going in a circle, because if you took one of these, if you took any of these columns out, you would not have the same outcomes. So the children would have less of an opportunity to achieve those outcomes. Okay. So now that we have a little bit of a better understanding of the foundations that we have set for family engagement, we're going to get into discussing communication. So our first poll question is going to be, how comfortable are you engaging families virtually? So we have not comfortable, somewhat comfortable, very comfortable. So it looks like we only have half of our participants responding. Okay. So it looks like we have a few more that haven't responded. Okay, so we'll go ahead and end the poll, and I will go ahead and share the results. So as y'all can see, 53% feel very comfortable. So that's really good that you all feel very comfortable with engaging families virtually. Somewhat comfortable, 44%, and then you have some that are not comfortable at all. And that's very understandable, because we're getting into a little bit of new territory. Did I not share the results? Can everybody see the results? Somebody sent me a message that they can't see it. Okay, now you can. Okay, I apologize. So you all can see the majority of people feel very comfortable, and then we have some people that are in the middle, because you're a little shaky because it's a little new, but you know you can do it. And then you have some folks that are not comfortable at all. And like I said, that is understandable, because it's a new system and it's natural to have some type of anxiety when you think about change, because it comes with a sense of, you know, it comes with some stress. Okay. So now let's just take a look at the challenges that come along with virtual communication. So one challenge I know that's on this list is technology. And I'm giving you an example right now. Okay. So what are some challenges of virtual communication? Off the top, I know you all can think of a few challenges, and we're going to hear from you all some challenges that may not be on this list, but let's look at some of the challenges. So of course, technology limitations are a challenge because not everybody is going to have the same access to technology. Not everybody is, and people may have access to technology devices, but their internet may not be able to sustain the amount of, or I don't even know what you call it. You won't be able to stream as well. Like mine at my house is normally a little bit shaky. So there's technology limitations that we will have to deal with, and we're going to talk more about having backup plans. Another challenge is this is a new way of working together. So like about 3% of people that were polled explained that they were not comfortable with virtual communication. So it causes a little bit of anxiety, and it does cause stress. It causes frustration. But as we work through our systems with little steps, it will definitely decrease those emotions. Increased stress, we talked about that. Perceived lack of resources and materials. So a lot of times when you're not actually providing services in person, if a child is not actually coming to your classroom where all of the materials are for them, now you have to rely on families actually having certain materials at home. So that's an opportunity to really be creative with explaining to families what types of material that they can use. And I know that, I guess you won't understand how creative you can be until you're faced with that, that task in front of you. So it could be a perceived lack of resources and materials. And then scheduling. Scheduling is definitely going to be a challenge because a lot of our families are having to work during the day. So a lot of caretakers, extended family members, close friends, they may be caring for those children during the day, and you all may have to communicate with those people, with their support systems during the day rather than the parents. Or you may have to adjust your schedule so that you can meet with that family later on in the evening. Okay, so we know that with challenges, every time you face a challenge in your life, it definitely brings an opportunity, a new way to view what is going on. So with this is no different. What are the opportunities that virtual communication can bring? The first one is access to families, access to other families. Family members, sorry. And we did just talk about that. So you may have more access to a family that otherwise you did not have that access. With virtual communication, you are now really trying to engage the goal is to always engage your families, but really you're really individualizing with every single family now, because if you're communicating virtually, you're gonna have access to that family regardless. Coaching parents. So this goes along with being aware of what your role is. So with teachers, you're actually, with teachers and family advocates, you know, your roles are going to be, they're going to be a little bit different. With teachers, now we're actually relying on families to actually be that primary teacher. We know, we already say that parents are the most important teacher in a child's life. Well, this is really the moment for every parent to really kind of learn that skill. So teachers, you're used to the children coming to school on a daily basis. You're used to having some type of control with those children. And right now, you're gonna have less control and you're gonna have to give more control to the parents. So this is a time that you're going to act as a coach for that parent. But on the other side of that, that means that if you're teaching this family how to better interact and engage with their child, you're giving them some knowledge they didn't have before, and now they're able to have quality interactions. Maybe their interactions won't be 100%, but at least they're learning how to really interact with their children. Empowering families to be creative, using different household materials for lessons. So we talked about that before in the challenge. So this is a challenge and it's an opportunity. Parent and teacher relationships. Again, I did talk about how when the children are at the center, there are times where families are less involved. Some families, you only meet them during parent conference time or home visit time. But now, you know, you have an opportunity to really establish a relationship with this parent, with these parents, to assist that child. Parents can be empowered to learn more about their child. That's similar to what we've talked about. Creating a system that increases family involvement. So the more contact we have with families, we're actually increasing the family engagement. And then there's a little one down there, focusing on individualizing. So this one is, you're not only going to be individualizing with the child, but through communication and different strategies, you'll see that you're going to be individualizing with that family. So that means the family can have more of a one-on-one relationship with the teaching staff, with the teaching staff, because a lot of times the family advocates have an individual relationship with those families. Okay, so this is just a quick chat question. Can you think of some other challenges in virtual engagement? Some challenges that maybe we didn't discuss. So we must have covered all the challenges, because I don't see any information in the chat box. Okay, so okay, I do see parents' unwillingness to participate. That's definitely a challenge, but then that's also an opportunity for us as well, and we'll talk about that later on. And families who don't have internet access is definitely a challenge, and I know that we are working to provide some type of resource for those parents. And parents that are not tech savvy, yes, that is a challenge. It's a challenge both ways. if we have staff that aren't tech savvy and you add a parent that's not tech savvy, you have a whole bunch of non-tech savviness. So it's important for us to learn how we can actually assist those families. Parents can be less open and give false sense of being okay. Yes, definitely. But that also begins with trying to build a relationship. And we'll talk about that more because you do have that. I mean, if you think about us every day when somebody asks us how we're doing and we all say fine, but really we're not fine. We're going through a lot of things. So attention span of the children, definitely. Families that are not able to be there with their children, with their kids to ensure they are online. Yeah, that's a good one. And that's a time that we may have to adjust a schedule or find out with the family when the best time is. Okay, so the one thing that I do want to say is as you all are thinking of the challenges, just remember to give yourself a little grace as you're working your way through this new way of communicating. You know, things are not always going to work out as planned, and when they don't, just star, and you all know what star is, and just adjust. Figure out how you can just adjust. We have to rely on each other more now to find solutions. But just give yourself, give yourself that time. It's okay. Going into this, we're not going to be perfect. We expect mistakes and we're going to be changing all the time. Okay, the helpful thing to remember is the way we engage families is with the same exact process to achieve the same goals, but we just have new opportunities. So just remember that. Okay. Here I go again. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, so we have another poll question, and okay, there we go. So another poll question. What do you think are the most important things to have when building relationships? So what do you think the most important things are when building relationships? Trust, respect, communication, openness, accessibility. Okay, we'll give like 10 more seconds because it looks like not everybody has participated. Okay, so we'll go ahead and end the poll. And I will share the results, and hopefully I share these results. Okay, so 1% accessibility, openness, 4% communication was the biggest one that you all thought was the most important. Trust, and respect. So it looks like communication and trust are at the top of the list for you all. Okay, so one of the most important things, so with all of that combined, one of the most important things in building a relationship is, of course, communication, because we're not able to get to any of those other areas if we're not able to talk to each other. So communication reduces assumptions. So if you think about texting somebody or emailing somebody, you're not really, sometimes you can't grasp what the tone is, and you might assume that they're being a certain way because of your own thoughts, your own assumptions, and you haven't spoken to that person. That has happened to me before. But if you communicate, if you talk to each other verbally about that same message that you were trying to convey, it works. So communication reduces assumptions. Communication helps to build trust. Communication increases the chances of achieving goals. With virtual communication, because we're not physically in the same place as our families, is going to give us a different type of energy. You know, when you see families in person, when you're engaging with people in person, it's definitely a different type of energy. Sometimes you may feel you can see more. So it's very important during virtual, you know, communicating with your families virtually, that you're really relying more on listening or what you're hearing. What are you seeing? Paying attention to the environment around, you know, that you can see. And with virtual communication, you can still pay attention to those nonverbal cues. So nonverbal cues are sometimes facial expressions. Nonverbal cues are also body language. So you can still observe those types of things during virtual visits or communication. It's just that you really, really, truly have to pay attention more. Make sure that when you're speaking to families, when you're communicating, that your tone matches what you're trying to say. An example of that is it's somebody's affect. Have you ever spoken to somebody and they're telling you a joke, and it's a funny joke, but they're very monotone and their affect does not match that joke you just told, and you're wondering, maybe it wasn't a joke. But there's some people that you have to really practice that social piece, like that those people skills, and just how your affect and your verbalization is coming together. Make sure that it matches. Remember, it's important to recognize when communicating virtually, observation skills need to be on high alert, especially now. So we'll probably keep saying that, but this is so very important. We have to focus so much more on our families and really pay attention, because there's a lot that we don't see when children and families are not in front of us. Like somebody said, you know, people can say they're doing fine and they're not really doing fine. So if we're listening more, if we're truly listening and truly focusing, there are things that we can see. It takes practice. So let's look at some things let's look at some skills, some people skills. They're also called interpersonal skills that can help us with communication. The very first one is to really reflect on your own attitudes and your beliefs. So it's important to take a moment to reflect on what attitudes you're bringing to communication with families in order to have productive and positive interactions. So I have a little meme on the right. It says, tell a girl she has an attitude and watch her catch an attitude about how she doesn't have one. I don't know if you all know anybody like this, but this reminded me of my daughter, who is 13 now. Sometimes this happens. So we really have to kind of focus in on what we're expecting to happen. Take a moment before you actually have that interaction. A lot of times when we hear things about people, our actions will, when we meet those people, our actions are going to match what we've heard about them. I hope that makes sense. But just kind of reflect on what you think and feel before talking with a family. Don't generalize based on your experience or what somebody else has experienced with the family. Sometimes you might think that the previous experience you had with that family is going to be the same one that you have this time around. So you're going to treat them like that. You may be a little bit more short with those families, and you won't put as much as an effort into trying to help them find solutions. So just be mindful on how your thoughts are shaping your responses. Remind yourself to keep looking for strengths, even with challenges. Everybody has strengths. Every single parent on this planet Earth has a strength. So just look for those and really, just really take a moment to get yourself ready for that particular interaction. Okay, so the next thing that we're going to discuss is actually empathy. And I know you all have heard this one a lot. Okay, I don't want to play it yet. Just to kind of give you an idea of what empathy is. Empathy is when you're trying to see somebody else's perspective. This is hard for a lot of us, but you're trying to find out why they feel in a certain way, how they came to the conclusion, what their reality is. So this is another skill that you definitely have to practice, and this also ties into attitudes and beliefs. So let's just take a moment to watch this.
The importance of empathy. We all live in our own version of reality, a reality that is limited by our senses, our temperament, and our own experiences. It is the only reality we will ever truly know. But it is crucial to our personal development, our relationships, and to society itself that we make the effort to try and experience other people's realities as well. This is done through empathy. Simply stated, empathy is an active attempt to understand another person's perspective, their emotions, and in essence, their reality. We are social animals, and our ability to communicate and understand each other's emotional states is key to maintaining our relationships. So it is little wonder that the ability to empathize is hardwired directly into our brains. One area that assists in this process is the right supramarginal gyrus, which helps us to distinguish our own emotional state from that of another person, and plays a key role in our ability to observe and assess what other people are experiencing. Studies from Neuron Science Journal suggest that we have systems of mirror neurons in our brains that cause us to mimic the actions of others. That is why when we see someone yawn, we will often yawn in reply. And when we observe someone experiencing joy or pain, we experience the same sensation to a certain extent. But these reactions are primarily driven by subconscious reflexes. In order to be truly empathic, you have to actively think beyond yourself and your own concerns. You can develop this empathic skill by practicing some simple habits. Be observant of others. We tend to spend the majority of our day dwelling on ourselves, caught up in our own daily routines and digital distractions. But taking the time to observe others around you is a good first step in developing your empathy. Watch and wonder. Try to focus on the person's state of being rather than categorizing or labeling them. Ask yourself, what kind of day are they having? How are they feeling? Challenge yourself to genuinely care about their well-being. Curiosity about others is the first step to expanding your empathy. Use active listening. During a conversation, especially a heated one, most people formulate their response before the other person even finishes their statement. This form of communication is more verbal combat than an exchange of ideas or opinions. Avoid this reflex by slowing down. Rather than rushing to reply, take a moment to consider the other person's statement. Ask follow-up questions to better understand what the speaker intended. Try to understand their emotional state and the deeper motivations behind their statement. What life experiences led them to their current worldview? Remember, you don't need to share someone's opinion in order to understand it and acknowledge it. And listening will help inform and expand your own opinion. Open up. Learning more about other people's experiences is a key element to seeing the world through someone else's eyes. But it is also important to open up about your own feelings and experiences. Empathy is a two-way street that at best is built upon mutual understanding. Through a combination of uncovering the deeper motivations of someone else's position and expressing our own underlying concerns, we often discover a shared commonality, even with those who hold different beliefs than ours. Through the practice of keeping an open mind, empathy helps us challenge prejudice, find commonality, and expand our moral universe. Without it, we are apt to label people outside our circle as the other, the problem, or the enemy. These labels draw lines in the sand that prevent us from moving forward or growing. It cuts us off from the realization that the human experience is a shared experience. We have much more in common than we think, and are really just seeing small.
Okay, I kind of cut that short because there was nothing else at the end there. But again, with empathy, it kind of ties into our attitudes and beliefs, and making sure we kind of take time to see other people's perspective. I'm looking at the time, so I'm gonna try to go through this a little quicker. The hope is to actually have a few more communication trainings, because we're gonna need that during the school year. So I might go a little quicker, but I do want to provide some time for Q&A a little bit at the end. But this slide that I have in front of you all, this is just to show what our families were dealing with before COVID. The way that you would read this is you can see the green on the left-hand side. You have the yellow dot, which is the individual. Then you have the next circle around them, which is their closest support system. The next circle in the middle is actually their, like their work, other places that may support their family. And then of course that last outside circle is what's going on around the world. So if you look at the left, then you look at the right, you'll see that a lot of things have gotten closer to that person. So now families are actually dealing with a lot more. You know, some families have unfortunately lost loved ones during this time, unexpectedly. Domestic violence, we're dealing with race and ethnicity. And then around that, you're looking at unemployment, which leads to toxic stress, access to healthcare. A lot of people are unemployed and lost their insurance. So just keep that in mind when you're communicating with your family. I do apologize for my technical difficulties here. Very unexpected. So let's go into some strategies. The first strategy that we'll talk about is planning. So planning is the biggest thing that you can do for yourself and for families. So plan your discussion pieces and materials using the information that you've been provided about the family. So during your first conference, whatever goal or outcome you're planning for, you want to make sure you're gearing your questions towards that. So develop your questions with a focus on open-ended questions, provide more information or support on what you'll be discussing so a family can actually have different modes of communication. Have core components. So that means have the same agenda or have that same layout every single time you're meeting with a family. So they can help them to be more comfortable, and it will help you as well planning. Have a backup plan. When things fail, you have to make sure you know what to do so you won't be taken by surprise. So sometimes when you plan to fail, so in your planning process, if you are planning that, well, what if this goes wrong? This is what I'm going to do. So it makes you feel more comfortable because you have a plan if something goes wrong. Plan to listen. Planning provides a level of confidence in staff and families. Preparing is a big one. You want to prepare the families. So we talk about communication and how communication is very important. And during this uncertain time now, families want communication. They want to know what the next step is because none of us have been through this before. So provide families with clear information on what you guys are going to discuss. Frequency of interactions, how they're going to take place, what your role is, and what the family's role is. What are you expecting of them? Provide examples along the way. Remember that everybody has a different level of comprehension, so you're going to have to meet the families where they are. We talked about providing different modes of communication, and always provide a timely response. When if you give your families your email, which you should, so that they have a quick way to respond to you or to get in touch with you, but always provide them with a timely response. Don't let them, I would respond within the same day and not let any day pass, without a response, because that helps to build trust. Notice when your families need extra support and collaborate with other staff to brainstorm ways. So if you're a teacher, you're having difficulty with a family, well, get with the FDA and you guys can brainstorm together. Or if you're an FDA, you're having difficulty with a family, the teacher may have a better relationship. Come together, brainstorm ideas so that you're able to come to some type of solution. And be transparent with families. Be honest with them. If you're not able to make an appointment or anything comes up, just be honest. Apologize. I apologize. I didn't get to you, and so on. So I'm going to be providing just a worksheet that kind of gives you a little checklist. I'll email it to everybody just to kind of help with planning. So observe and active listen. So this is probably a training on its own. But just remember that listening provides you with a lot of information about a family. I'm going to give a quick example of how listening can help to get more information from a family. So generally in family services, we are dealing a lot with establishing goals with families. So we talk a lot about not asking the question of what is your goal, because that is a very loaded question and you will not probably get good responses. You're going to get off the top responses with that. So what you do is you just listen. Sometimes we think that we have to go through our own checklist because we have to get our work done. But the reality is that building relationships doesn't work like that. So that's something we have to remember. So there was one time that I was at Davis. I saw a parent. She just got her child enrolled. So she stopped me in the hallway. We were talking for a little bit and she explained to me, I asked her, how her child was doing. She said she was so super excited. She said that she felt comfortable with the teacher, but she was still kind of uncomfortable leaving her child. But she said that right now she's able to go back to work. So we talked a little bit more about that. And when we finished the conversation, by just listening to her, I know that her goals are to go back to work. Her goals are to another goal that she may have is to try to work on that transition of leaving her child at the center. So with those two in mind, then now I could create a plan based on that. And because she gave me that information on her own, I know those are the needs those are her wants. So that's just an example. If you just sit back and you listen, you can hear what the parent needs, even in their frustration. So I'm not gonna go through all of this, but I'm gonna show you a quick video and then we're gonna take a poll. I had 2 videos to show, but I'm just gonna go through one of them. So let me see if I can do that. Not this one. Oh, okay, here we go. I've been talking and not sharing my screen. Can you see?
When someone reaches out to you, you want to be able to support them and help them through whatever they're facing. Listening well is a skill, so we've put together 6 tips on how to actively listen and help a friend going through a tough time. Ask open questions. Instead of asking yes or no questions, try and keep them open-ended. These are the how, what, where, who, and why questions. For example, instead of saying, "Has this been going on a long time?" ask, "How long has this been going on?" Summarize. Summarize what they've said and say it back to them. This helps to show the person that you've been listening and that you understand their situation. Reflect. Repeating back a word or a phrase can encourage people to go on and expand their thoughts. If someone says, "It's been really difficult recently," you can keep the conversation going by simply repeating a word they used in their sentence. This really helps people to open up. Clarify. Sometimes a friend can gloss over an important point. Saying something as simple as, "Tell me more about that," can not only clarify the point for you, but for them as well. Give words of encouragement. It sounds obvious, but a "go on" or "I see" can really give much needed encouragement and help the person to continue talking. Don't feel the need to fill the silences in a conversation though, as quiet moments are good and give the person time to think about their feelings or what they'd like to say next. React. You don't have to be completely neutral. If whoever you're talking to has been having a dreadful time, simply acknowledging this is important. Don't be afraid to say, "You've had an awful time." You need to show that you've understood the situation by reacting to it. There are times when your friend or loved one may need to seek help urgently. If they are at risk of harming themselves or feel that they may act on suicidal thoughts they are experiencing, it's important that you help them seek medical attention as soon as possible. You can accompany them to any hospital or A&E department.
Okay, so I cut that short because I didn't want you all to see the rest of that. So let's just take another quick poll question. And reflecting on the video that you just saw, how would you honestly rate your listening skills? Okay, so we still have some people that are answering. Just to let you all know, these polls are anonymous, just in case you needed to know that. Okay, so we'll go ahead and end the poll. And I'm going to share my results here. So sharing the results, 52% of you, 52% of you have good listening skills, which is good. You all feel like your listening skills are very good. Some of you need improvement, and some of you didn't know that you were not a good listener until you watched the video. So that is great. All right, so we did talk about, open-ended questioning, strength-based conversations. Just make sure that you're trying to identify strengths with families and let them know what these strengths are, because a lot of times parents don't see when they're in tough situations what their strengths really are. Debrief, always debrief with a parent at the end of the visit to follow up to provide expectations for the next upcoming visit. So let them know at the end of the visit when you guys are going to meet again, what you're going to talk about, and what maybe you want them to focus on, what you'll be focusing on. It leads back to having that agenda. If you always put that in the agenda, you'll be more prepared. And I will send you guys a email of this presentation with these strategies, since I'm going through it a little bit quick. For the sake of time, always provide resources, collaborate and coordinate with other departments if you're unsure of what type of resources to provide. And just remember, don't just use one mode of learning. When you use one mode, it doesn't create an environment of success. So try to provide different types of resources based on the level the parent is in. Follow up. The biggest thing here is consistency. Follow up when you say you're going to follow up. Keep your word. That builds trust, because when you don't think somebody's paying attention, they are, and they've made an assumption, and then that's when they kind of close you out. So please be sure you follow up when you say you will, and keep your word. Meet the family where they are. Although you have a concrete system, remember you're going to have to adjust based on the parent's current circumstances. So you do have to get your work done, but you can't do it without the parent. So you need to come to some type of agreement, some type of compromise. So you will need to adjust. And in closing, if you plan based on the outcomes you want to achieve, so think about the goals that you want to achieve going into it, and the value that you keep close as a professional. What do you value in your role? You will be intentional and you'll have greater success. Start with the end in mind. So with that, just really, okay. That, we won't do that. So just really quickly, did anybody have any questions? Let's see. So there are a few questions that I'll just go over really quickly. How would we be able to know if the child is actually doing work? Okay, I think that's an education question, and it probably has to do more with monitoring and tracking. Can we expect administrative staff to improve with email responses this year and being more transparent with us as educators? So I think this is probably a great question for your supervisors to address. So I'm going to leave it there. But definitely, if we're expecting you all to communicate with your families and be responsive, of course, that's the goal of all staff at Buford Jasper. Okay. I know I went kind of fast. I was trying to be mindful of your time, and I might have been a little bit too ambitious in making this PowerPoint, but I will send you some resources and I'll send you the PowerPoint. And again, we will definitely plan another communication training and try to be a little bit more frequent with those. So I appreciate everybody's patience with my technology, and I hope you all have a great day and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.